Michael Carter is the new running back for running back landing spots, but we are skeptical of his rookie draft price point. And the market picks apart the round one landing spots for Najee Harris and, more importantly, Travis Etienne. That and more this week on the Footballguys Dynasty Show. I'm your host, Chad Parsons, and he is Jordan McNamara. And the featured element of day 3 was that of Michael Carter. Thought to be maybe a day 2 pick. He was not. He fades to day 3. But gets one of those alluring landing spots with the Jets. And frankly, Jordan, I got into Sunday and kind of tracking some drafts, my own draft starting on Monday. I had minimal idea that he was going to be so prominently drafted in round 1 of rookie drafts. And at minimum, and even with Superflex, he was not venturing very far into round 2 before he was selected by Dynasty GMs.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely up there in terms of where he's going. I had him, we were tracking him. We had him at 202 in start 1 and basically mid to later second in terms of start, in terms of Superflex. So for a day, listen, I don't really like to reach on day 3 running backs. We had him at 205. And I'm sure that'll go down a little bit just because some of the drafts haven't cycled all the way through yet. So I bet that drops to 206, 207, something by the time it's all said and done. But yeah, I mean, he's going ahead of Pat Freiermuth, for example. He's going ahead of Kadarius Toney. And even if you don't like Kadarius Toney, the first round pedigree on a wide receiver, even a week 1 like Kadarius Toney historically, is still better than Michael Carter's hit rate coming from day 3. So you just kind of look down at some of these and you're like, how am I sort of going that way? And then you sort of pair him up with some of the guys that are going, he should be going around like Chuba Hubbard and some other day 3 guys. There's a, half or, 3/4 of a round gap in rookie ADP. Those things, when those things happen, when there's big gaps there, when there's, when there's profiles that are going sort of out of whack, you have to really be conscientious of that and make sure that you're not, make sure you're not on the wrong side of an outlier. So that's, to me, it's a clear sign of like Chuba Hubbard and some other guys in relation to Elijah and in relation to Michael Carter are probably interesting investment opportunities.
Yeah, I was writing up an article today, and it was about Mike Carter, and part of it was about the situation. Is this really a good situation? Like, is this one where we should consider him a walk-in starter? I actually heard by, I think it was Todd McShay this week, saying that they referencing, the Jets draft, and then saying Michael Carter, them adding a receiving back. So receiving back does not mean foundation back. Receiving back doesn't mean starting high volume, 250 plus touch back. Like, you don't typically say receiving back. And the other thing is, I find it interesting because his profile from college is actually that not of a receiving back. He very much on that depth chart, especially, does not have the profile of all 4 typical, the main guys on that Jets depth chart. I would say he ranks minimum 3rd out of the 4th in terms of what have they done in their collegiate plus NFL careers to date, pointing them to either receiving or not receiving in their profile. So I thought that was interesting as well. This guy with not a great receiving profile, and many are projecting him for 3 down work. And I think part of that has to do, people don't like the other options. Like, they view the Jets as wide open because you don't like retread Tevin Coleman. You are not pleased with early day 3, similar draft capital to Michael Carter from last year, LaMichael Pirine, who actually played and saw some decent touches as a rookie. Then they also have Ty Johnson, who is also through 2 seasons for minimal pedigree, has received work in the NFL and has some athletic chops. So to consider this, like, and I thought it was interesting that Michael Carter now costs you a round 2 pick. And like I said, I've seen way too many first round selections of him, regardless of the format. Point per carry, whatever you want. Doesn't matter. He should not be going anywhere near that range. The interesting part, though, is the other 3 guys are varying degrees of a roster spot in terms of value, right? Like, Tevin Coleman is not exorbitantly expensive. And the other 2 are like throw-in caliber, even if Tevin Coleman is above that threshold, which I'm not assuming he is. So you're talking about 3 guys that are all dirt cheap to take a shot. And so you better be really sure it's Michael Carter's job to say that he is worth, from roster spot to, top half round 2 pick cost. That is a significant jump for a player that did not. This is not, we're not talking about Chuba Hubbard landing there or someone that had a much better profile as a prospect coming into the NFL. Michael Carter to me is the fascinating running back of this class, considering cost, what his profile was, and then considering he fell in the draft and yet largely comes out unaffected. I wonder if he had actually, can you imagine if Michael Carter had gone in the third round of the 49ers? Would he be going running back 2? Running back 3? I mean, would he be jumping one of those guys? Because on the other side, Trey Sermon is not going as highly as I would have thought. So those are two diverging, they're not too far away in where they go in drafts for what I thought the outcome would be.
Yeah, it's funny. I always get a kick out of when you look at some of the expert mocks, or you look at some sites that do not mocks, rankings. When you look at some rankings, and you see that there's a player that's consistently lower than the market. It's always interesting when that happens to me. And Trey Sermon was one of them. The rankers consistently, not us, but rankers consistently were ranking him 5, 6, 7, 8 spots later than where he's actually going in drafts, which is an interesting adjustment. With Carter, I do think the difference in their pedigrees is a pretty major thing. And that might not seem like that many when you sort of look at it's not that many picks in between. I don't know if it's 15, 20 picks, something like that. But it is a big difference historically between round 3 and round 4 running backs, a huge difference. And, when you look at the, just the hit rate, the density rate, all of those things, it's a massive difference. And, the fact that it's interesting to me because the defense that I would have for Michael Carter would be, listen, there are only, right, there's if you sort of look at the bad round 1 profiles, the good round 2 profiles, like if you sort of lump them together in a group, historically they look similar, right? If you sort of put that in a big, large bucket, you could pick your guys out of there, but there's 6, 7, 8 guys in there. When you sort of look at difference making running backs, you've got, you've basically got, you got Harris, you got Etienne, and you got Williams who are going early, and then there's a shortage of them late. So the fact that they should, in theory, just because the supply is low, the demand is high, they should go higher than some of these wide receivers are going. It's happening for Carter, but not for Sermon quite to the extent that I would have thought it would have. So yeah, I mean, I think that there's a disconnect there for sure when people are trying to make this bet on Michael Carter, where it seems like there's more likely bets in and around him.
Yeah, the day 3 running back, and like you said, it may not be a substantial number of picks. I mean, it's about 20 selections where Sermon was, and it is notable that the 49ers traded up to get him. And then you also have Michael Carter going early on day 3. But again, that late versus early sort of line, yeah, it's a big deal, both in terms of the commitment level for the teams, your stickiness, your likelihood to get surpassed and see competition on your depth chart in even next year's draft class. So there are a lot of positives for day 2 versus day 3 across positions, but running back is a pretty darn big one to say that. And we've always said this before, that if you are a running back with at least the look profile wise of being a lead back and you're day 2, and this is sort of the Damian Harris sort of effect or rule, that you don't go 2 years in a row without basically being viewed as the starter. So it looks murky now, but let's not pretend like the 49ers have a bunch of options on their depth chart that are like big picture, scary in terms of pedigree or incumbent status. I mean, I think Raheem Mostert is sort of on his last legs of like significant opportunities. Like, I don't know if beyond the 49ers, beyond 2021, he has a lot of like, I can get 200 touches in a year type proclamations or projections for him. And same thing goes for Jeff Wilson. Really nice story, but this drafting, is not a great sign for him. Wayne Gallman signed before this. He had some intrigue, but Sermon trumps all of this in terms of that investment level. And if you would have told me on Saturday that I would have with my first 12 drafts ongoing or completed at this point, I would have 3x exposure level to Trey Sermon of that of an average Dynasty GM, I would not have believed you because I thought it was price exclusionary. I thought he would go far closer to Javonte Williams, who again, didn't get as good of a spot in my opinion, yet people think it's a really good landing spot. I'm kind of buying. I just did a redraft, expert mock, and I drafted pretty easily Melvin Gordon, because I think this is one of those scenarios where to start the year, it's Melvin Gordon. And I don't think that's, it might be a Nick Chubb situation by midseason, but who knows who stays healthy? How is Javonte Williams progressing? All those types of things. But I know there's big expectations quizzically because the competition level is higher for Javonte Williams. And again, like you mentioned, that divide, that spread in cost where you're getting Trey Sermon late first, sometimes drifting into the early second of Superflex. I have been getting some shares. I have been trading up from the second round range, which I don't find as appealing. Give me the day 2 running back that I like the profile. If he got day 2, he did. He lands with the 49ers, highly conducive system, possibly pairing him with a mobile quarterback sooner rather than later here with Trey Lance. A lot of positives. And I really thought, if you'd asked me on Saturday that Sermon was going to be right up there with Javonte Williams, and he's far closer to Michael Carter in a lot of the drafts I've seen.
It's all recency bias, right? Isn't that entirely recency bias? It's people doing
one day
Vaughn in their head. No, it's
Keyshawn. I thought you meant it was Friday night, and now it's Saturday during the day.
No, this is Keyshawn Vaughn. This is people reacting to Keyshawn Vaughn saying it's a really good landing spot. Listen, this is the best landing spot since Kamara. Like point blank. I don't do the landing spot thing. I do it maybe once every 5 years.
But if you did.
And I did it. You and I did it with Kamara, and I'm doing it again with Sermon. And again, I won't get the shares of him. I just can't get to where he's going enough to do it. But I mean, it was a listen. I am really reticent to do anything on landing spots because I think we're horrible at it. Like of all the things we do well,
landing spot next year is going to look different than landing spot right now. Or
Correct.
Week 6, the landing spot is going to look different on said strong offense, said weak offense.
Yeah, and I did a piece. I actually left it in draft. I should finish it out and put it on the web and put it as an article on Footballguys because I think it's really like when you look back on it. If we went back a year ago and sort of did a rundown of all the running back situations, you'd been like, well, Gibson's blocked by Guy and Peterson, and he's got Barber there. And you'd be like, oh, well, James Robinson's got Fournette and Divino Zigbo and Armstead there, right? And it was, oh, look, Keyshawn Vaughn's got a really interesting opportunity because it's only Ronald Jones ahead of him. And then it's like, oh wait, Jonathan Taylor's going to split time with Marlon Mack. Swift's going to split time with Kerryon Johnson, and then he did, and then he split time with Peterson, and then he's down in the dumps is like through week 6, and it's like all of these things happened, and just the changes that happen from now until August will be I just hope they're not that many as there were last year, but there could be massive value differences based on situation. And that was literally 4 months of difference. And who knows who it's going to happen to, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of these situations out there that people are expecting that they know. That's I think the flip side of why, we just saw it today. People think Denver's a good landing spot until one of their starting linemen blows out his leg in off-season workouts. Right now, all of a sudden, it looks a little bit less. And you just see these things with landing spot that I just be really reticent about expecting it. So all that's to say, this Sermon one's about the only time that I've done it since Kamara. And,
well, the difference.
I think it's the landing spot.
The difference is think of it like with Patrick Mahomes, right? You're investing in Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes in terms of quote unquote situation. Trey Sermon, part of what you're investing in when you're declaring this is Kyle Shanahan, right?
Yeah.
Or all of it. So that you're investing in something more stable. When you're investing in so-and-so has a good offensive line, so-and-so is connected to a good quarterback. Now I would say quarterback is probably stickier than other aspects of like, oh, well, they're going to an open depth chart at running back. They're going to this. I always say with an open depth chart, like I think Detroit's passing game is going to be fascinating because, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going relatively early for a day 3 wide receiver. And it's like, so someone, and Quintez Cephas someone has to be the guy. Like it's an open depth chart. And so, but you still have to be good enough to gain the market share and gain the job and hold the job, even if it's for a month, even if it's for one season. And then James Robinson style, you're going to look over your shoulder, say, who's coming for me? Because you don't have the pedigree. So when you chase situation by a player that, number one, you don't even know, can they get the job, even against other guys? So James Robinson, let's not pretend like James Robinson, we still didn't know at that point, would he be able to usurp or beat out Raquel Armstead, Divino Zigbo, Chris Thompson was there, who has shown something in his career. So to pretend like even without Leonard Fournette, there was clarity that this UDFA was going to outlast and be the absolute workhorse over all of them, and independent of, Raquel Armstead's COVID and Fournette being gone, like there was a lot of variables, but just, so it'll be interesting to see if, Tyrell Williams is not very good, and Brashad Perriman, he finally showed something, but he's a bust. Like, is Amon-Ra St. Brown going to actually beat out those guys? To pretend like they don't even exist. Those are pros. Right. Those are pros that have been around. So and Quintez Cephas, he was kind of in that situation last year. He's got 1 year up on you. So just be careful, of this, like you're assuming they're going to just walk in as a rookie and take a job. There's not a ton of guys that are capable of doing that and actually keeping it. The other part at running back I wanted to bring up was the interesting so Najee Harris goes to Pittsburgh, one of the stock picks of first round in mock drafts. It occurs exactly
that feels
like
Jacobs to the Raiders a couple years ago, right? Where
team to player, we get that. Now what we didn't get. No, what we did get was Travis Etienne going in the first round. We did not know. I think the over-under line was 0.5 running backs or somewhere in that ilk. We got 2. We are blessed. We got 4 in the top 3 rounds, yet 2 were in the first round. Yet Etienne is drifting a little bit. So this divide of all of a sudden, again, people are picking apart both landing spots. Offensive line is horrible in Pittsburgh, but Najee Harris is going to be the clear workhorse back. And then Travis Etienne is going to be in a mired committee seemingly forever, and that an undrafted player will be the reason, and this is me, embellishing a point that I basically hear, which is the situation's not good, and it's going to be a timeshare committee, and again, what this means is an undrafted player is going to hold down whatever the future cast and projection is over their rookie contract for Travis Etienne with round 1 pedigree. Color me skeptical that's if he fails, it's not going to be due to that storyline I just said.
Right. Yeah. I don't think I am with you. The hit rate on first round running backs is like 82%. If you're thinking about a second rounder over a first rounder, I talked about this on the draft night show. It's a horrible bet to take Javonte Williams over Travis Etienne, even if you don't like Etienne's landing spot. All the caveats we just mentioned about landing spot, that we just mentioned before with landing spot. Those things change quickly. And again, if you're like, oh, James Robinson could hold him back, like until he goes Marlon Mack and gets hurt, and all of a sudden we don't hear from him again, right? I mean, that's kind of how quickly those things can change. Those are very vulnerable situations for low pedigree guys. We were just looking at data today. And I've got a tracker of rookie drafts, and he's available at like 54% of the time at 108 in Superflex, which to me is just, when you think about that, it's just incredible. Basically half the time, if you're at 108, you're going to get him. It's amazing that you're sitting there on a first round running back profile. And this isn't a reach. Like this isn't like the Henry Ruggs in the first round of running back profiles. Like this is a player that we know a lot about. He was projected
to go top 35, 40, and he was right in that round 1, round 2 line, and Jacksonville took him, which again, this is not a pat on your back situation, but we did talk about landing spots that shouldn't be surprised. And Jacksonville and the Jets were the two that I said, they have a ton of picks. They may look at it as just, let's get a bunch of players at a bunch of spots that we view as BPA. And they viewed Etienne as BPA there. And I don't fault them at all. So the fact that you get a receiving centric guy, and can he be a higher volume guy? Yes. But can he be, one of the better pass catchers and a guy that you can flex out and just be all over the place, easier throws for Lawrence, all of those things. But getting that round 1 pedigree, and like you said, a difference of 5-10 picks, and being on that line is very important. Just like we were saying last year with Edwards-Helaire, that even if you don't like him, there's a lot of built in on buying more shares. I would never have guessed. I thought I'd be in on Travis Etienne after the draft. And frankly, now I wonder what would happen if he had flip-flopped with Javonte Williams. Like, if they had flipped, Etienne would probably be going, 3-4 spots below where he is now, minimum. He might be going behind Trey Sermon, to be fair. So we kind of find out a little bit. So, but I am like 7x in early drafts of my exposure. Etienne has absolutely been the guy early on that I have the most shares in round one of rookie drafts so far. And I don't think that's going to change. Like you just mentioned, drifting to 7, 8, somewhere in that range in Superflex for a round one running back, especially one that, it's not like we're investing in a 192-pound back that wasn't a big time performer. It's like, I really am surprised they were drafted in that range. No, we kind of expected this. He's a highly pedigreed option. And what I've said is, if you look at the profiles of guys like Dobbins and Akers, where good dual threat, highly productive profiles that came from major conference, major programs, he fits all those, and yet there's a stink around him. So I'm just going to collect the pedigree. And you know what? Round one running backs, if they don't work out, it's generally on their own accord. It's not something based, like you said, situationally or what the depth chart looks like.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. So one fell into my lap, by the way. I haven't told you the story. So I was out mowing my lawn doing the pre-rookie draft. A bunch of them went off at 10 o'clock on Monday. So I was getting my lawn mowed before that happened. And I get an incoming offer, and someone offered me, it was like 106. I had 106 and a couple of late seconds and start one for 101. And I was like doing the math. I was like doing the math in my head, just quick calculations. I didn't have my board or anything in front of me. And I was like, yeah, that's the zone of death outside of like 204. I was like, yeah, we're just going to snap accept that one. And I got myself a share of Harris for basically, and I didn't know how efficient the rookie draft market was going to be until I saw it, and it was pretty efficient. And there weren't a ton of, players out there that should have, that shouldn't be, there wasn't anyone really falling to that range. And so I was essentially like, I don't know about you, I've viewed like anyone outside that there's a range there of top 12, top 13 guys in that range and start one. And then it's you include the 5 quarterbacks and Superflex. Anything outside of that there's a massive drop off. And I have used some of those picks to sort of acquire, whether it's veterans or whether it's packages, just to try and move up and get a more premium asset, just because I think they're fairly weak where they're at.
Yeah. The thing that I would prompt folks is, if you're in a moderate or shallow league, that just know that if you're taking a wide receiver in the like late round 2, there's going to be roster pressure like nobody's business on that player, and they generally aren't going to pop off for you to really validate it. So know that, because at least if you take a running back, like at least on, like, let's say at 211, you take Chuba Hubbard, like at least you're going to have good clarity relatively early. Is this the primary backup? And then that would be worth holding. If something happens, and maybe by, October, November, it's clear that he's not that guy, then maybe you move off of that or whatever. But a wide receiver, you're very unlikely to get clarity of like, like Amon-Ra St. Brown coming in, for example, and being like the clear number one guy and getting, 30 targets in September is not very likely. Of like, oh yeah, this was the pick in that range. Like, he's likely to, could he benefit from an injury, progress, or, and you see some flashes, and then, he's a year 2 potential uptick player. But how much roster pressure and like 24-man rosters are you going to have with that roster spot at your wide receiver 7 or 9 or whatever it is, right, by September? So just keep that in mind, I would say, because you're probably going to hold that player a lot longer than you might. And that's the one thing, like, I wanted to ask you, because I think in passing a couple of things that, I think you mentioned Pat Freiermuth, for example, like in those types of leagues, a tight end that you're for sure pretty much just going to sit on until next year. I don't know that I've passed on him a couple of times just because I know how I operate in season and starting in August. And if he's my tight end 2 or 3, I can't have a guy that's like going to be relatively unstartable, highly projected, like just not startable. And like, so if I need a bye week guy, if I need an injury guy, I have to pick someone up, and now a third tight end. So I just, from mechanics, I do get that he's one of the best values and profiles in that range, but it's only in leagues that are a little deeper where you don't have that roster pressure of the final 3, 4, 5 spots that a round 2 pick certainly could be on and will be on, when you're in that, 25 and under. 25 and under. Sounds like a special group.
He's the perfect like 28 man late second, round 3 turn guy.
Deeper league special.
Yeah, deeper league special. The problem is he hasn't gone there, right? So he's at 207 is where we have him, and it's just there's no value. There's just no value, and it's just not. I hate to be Johnny Rainclaw, but I just don't think the class is that good. Even last year, when you look at what you were getting at the 2-3 turn, Clement was going 6, 7, 8 picks later than Freimuth is going this year. And just take 2 similar type of profiles. Second round guys. They're not world beaters, but they're they had decent, good college careers, thought highly of in the NFL, taken really close to the NFL draft. And you can just see the difference. Freimuth is going 6, 7, 8 picks before Komet is going. I mean, that pretty much tells you about this class. And the other thing too is that I say is you can tell how good a class is by how good the day 2 running backs are. Right? How many day 2 running backs are there?
And it's a waste
2 of them this year. It's just a horrible spot to be in.
Well, Michael Carter is being viewed as a proxy.
Correct.
Of one of those. I've even seen Kenny Gainwell go in the second round for some unearthly reason, because guess what? Pre-draft, we had projections of day 2 on Kenny Gainwell and Michael Carter, and we got to stick with those. We got to view them in some replicatable, look out far into the horizon landscape that they are kind of like, they're day 2 guys that fell. Sorry, let's look at them as day 2 guys that fell. So let's draft those guys. I mean, it is perplexing. That you never really know, on Wednesday before the draft, who it's going to be. Who's it going to be? You got a wall of pictures, and it's who is going to be the one that gets those dart throws. But we've seen it. Trey Sermon not getting the love, and then yet you see, again, relatively speaking, some day 3 running backs getting their fair share of said love. This is Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 53 of the Football Guys Dynasty Show. We're officially into our second season, if we were a TV show, Jordan, because we started right around the NFL draft last year. And this is the perfect time to sign up as a Football Guys subscriber. If you're into this show, you are a serious fantasy player. Winning consistently, though, is challenging. It takes a lot of time. You need the edge, and the Football Guys premium subscription gives you that edge, winning decisions and saving you time. You want to get the edge, My Football Guys. You can sync in all of your leagues. You're going to get custom information about your pickups every single week. I mean, there's thousands of draft boards and cheat sheets available to you to customize exactly what you're doing for redraft, Dynasty. We have DFS information, everything, and monsters across every single platform, rankings, comments within the rankings, everything you need. And we're updating all of those things to get you ready for the summer push here after the NFL draft. That early bird discount is available now in July. Everything is going behind the paywall. You don't want to get stuck without the information you need when you get to the pivotal time in July, August, and especially in season. So head over to footballguys.com, click the orange button in the upper right corner. It says join now. That'll take you right to the early bird discounting. We'll do the work and you do the winning. I did track down some trades that were either in rookie drafts, Jordan, that were highly interesting, or they were at least after veteran variety, the NFL draft had taken place. So here's a couple of hand-selected ones. This is a 1-quarterback league. 101 being dealt. So that is highly likely to be Najee Harris, but also Jamar Chase is mixed in there. I even saw one time Kyle Pitts, Jordan. Don't have your head explode. Kyle Pitts with 101 in a stock, no premiums format. But here's 101 being moved for Ezekiel Elliott, AJ Dillon, Evan Ingram, 204 and 304.
Give me the package.
Would you take Zeke alone? Yes or no?
We could debate that. I don't think we need to. Just with everyone else, it was Ingram. It was. I think it's close. I get the argument. From a production perspective over the next couple of years. I get the idea of Ingram of taking Elliott over Harris. If you sort of wanted to say, who's more insulated, is there more risk there with Zeke, all those things is sort of, I could sort of have that debate. It's not close once you add everything else in.
Yeah, if 101 was selling and they were just sending offers around, the hubris to add 204 and 304, for example, beyond like Zeke and AJ Dillon is already just a monster win, in my opinion. And I'm a big fan of Najee Harris, and I've taken him plenty so far. All right. And how about this? We've talked about Miles Gaskin a little bit, that he emerged. The Miami Dolphins, they drafted Jared Dokes right before the draft ended. That is it. They are going full Jordan and Chad build a running back core mode of minimal investment here. They brought in Malcolm Brown, a favorite of ours. And what do you think about trading Miles Gaskin for a 22-second, deemed as later in the round, but we view them as random picks? Gaskin for a second in a one quarterback. Do you think post-draft that's a worthy buy of Gaskin? And would you sell for that?
That's a future second?
Yes.
Did you say Gaskin for future second, start one? I wish I could do a second this year. I don't love giving the second next year. I hate giving future picks just for players that don't have that sturdy profiles. I'll say, and I don't know how much of a difference maker he's going to be, is the other thing, and how much more expensive does he get? That's the other question that I would have. So all of that is to say, I think it's close. I guess I could see it. I think it's probably close. I'd probably not give the pick in this situation. I'd probably keep the pick.
Yeah, I wouldn't give the pick for Gaskin. I would say it's difficult to sell him for such, that he's pretty much emerged. Right. Are they adding, Todd Gurley? Are we going to get a situation where Le'Veon Bell comes in, or there's a release of some notable back a la Leonard Fournette that, causes a ripple somewhere? The Dolphins could certainly be one to benefit from said ripple. But for Gaskin, I think your point applies, that how much is he going to be worth a first in season if he's producing his way along? I mean, yes, James Robinson was from similar lack of capital, but I don't know if Gaskin's ever going to really have the juice. So you're either going to use him in season and maybe still flip for a second at some point. But if he ever downturns, I don't think he'll be worth a second at that point. It's relatively binary. He'll be worth a third minus the moment he either gets replaced and he's a primary backup, or gets hurt and the job's in question. Or he just isn't producing as well as he was last year. So just know that. I would be more apt to holding, but I definitely wouldn't buy for a second. Just my own DNA here. The ship already sailed on getting Gaskin for like a fourth or off your waiver wire. So I'm generally not in on the rebound there. All right. What about this one in terms of proven versus unproven, Jordan? Same thing as the 101 deal a second ago. Patrick Mahomes in Superflex was traded for two players that have yet to play in the NFL. We have Trevor Lawrence and we have Jamar Chase.
I wish I could find the sucker that I could do that with.
How? Let me ask you this: how, if Trevor Lawrence is not great in this deal, even if Jamar Chase is the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty, is this a fair trade?
You bleed from your eyeballs.
Bleed from your eyeballs.
You heard it from Jordan. Man, this is a disaster. You can't do this.
That's the sharpshooting. Exactly. Like Patrick Mahomes. I have Patrick Mahomes in a startup I drafted 101 like a couple years ago, and I've yet to receive one offer on him.
Really?
Yet. I've received 0 offers. And part of the reason is this. Like, so what would you offer? Like, what do you think is
I would smash give that. I would give Lawrence and Chase.
No. I understand, but what I'm saying is in an existing league, no one's explored. Like, he's very much in Superflex untouchable in the span of so if you're going to offer a deal, like what is not insulting, what is actually gettable? I mean, without giving a substantial portion of your roster. And maybe I just answered it. Maybe it's a substantial portion of your roster.
I gave I did it. I went and got him. And I forget exactly. I could look up the package that I did, but I think I've actually got him twice. And I just asked, I said, "What do you want?" We went kind of round and round, and then it was,
How high of a did you give a quarterback?
then it was basically, I don't, I'll let me get the thing and I can check for you. I know I gave a couple of starting wide receivers. And I don't think I gave a super high end quarterback either, but I can check and look and see.
If I know you, it's probably Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo.
All of my shares
wide receiver pumpkins.
Can we talk about the fact that I've come around on Jimmy Garoppolo? Yeah. How much I've come around on Jimmy. Well,
I've come around on Gardner Minshew too. Things change. Things change when values change.
Yes, you have.
When cost changes. Exactly. I was Minshew when he was starting. I was like, get off of it. Get out of here with this guy. But yeah, Garoppolo. You are all in on Garoppolo now. Well, now he's probably going out.
I would rephrase that. I'm not all in. I just
you're all in. Now you think he can make all the throws that he thinks he can make.
Right. Stafford, Mike Evans, and Juju for Patrick Mahomes and Gus Edwards.
Okay. See, that's big for you. When was that? Last year?
February. January 30th, right before the Super
Bowl. Okay. Kind of surprising. That was before Stafford was on the Rams,
I mean, I don't. Yeah, and I don't think if you sort of do that again, I mean, it's basically a fourth, sixth, and a seventh for 101. I think you smashed that. I wouldn't. And the Gus Edwards piece was non-trivial to me. It sounds ridiculous, but it was non-trivial to me. And I didn't. I think I've done it. And I haven't seen one yet that I wouldn't pay the price. For Mahomes, I just think you put yourself in such a different strata with him that you just do it and you figure it out. I have in that league, I have him and Josh Allen. Like that makes up for a lot of ills. And can correct a lot of wrongs. It's like a team that makes 16 threes in a basketball game. Like you're probably going to win. Like it's really tough to get around that. And that's really the roster construction advantage that you have when you go up there and you get both of them.
All right. We have a ton of quotes from the Football Guys Dynasty forum this week. So I wanted to make sure we get to all of them rapid fire that we can. We've got some projected winners and losers. It's not a formal show, but I wanted to include some of these comments from the Shark Pool. So if you want to be included, there's a nice Dynasty Trades forum where you can post trades, you can comment on trades. But that is not the coach's assistant to ask their advice for a trade you're trying to make. So just be careful about that. That's a completely separate area, but tons of information in there. I would charge all of listeners to go over there and at least check it out. Here we go. Rapid fire, Jordan. Tyler Boyd's value takes a massive hit with Jamar Chase coming to town. His contract is cuttable starting this year with zero guaranteed going forward.
I think if you were valuing him super highly before, you're probably doing it wrong. So that would be the initial starting point. I'm not sure how this doesn't hurt T. Higgins, whose value was a lot higher. I don't know. I think, if we said, hey, who has more targets this year? I don't necessarily think it's an unreasonable bet to take Tyler Boyd, especially if you're getting a little bit of odds there. So I don't think this necessarily runs them out of town. But I would caution people who are like, oh, look, they have one wide receiver 1 and 2 wide receiver 2s for a quarterback that's played, I don't know, less than 16 games. Like that's a little bit much to ask. But I do think, I'll be interested particularly to watch how T. Higgins gets treated in this whole thing.
And I would say T. Higgins is Tyler Boyd's another one I'm coming around on. That I think next offseason I'm going to be way in on him. I like the production that he's had so far. I like the track he's on. But what I didn't like for a while was how highly he was valued. All right. This is regarding Tylan Wallace. Man, good night fantasy value. Did any top wide receiver prospect tank more than his?
Tank quite a bit. I was never a huge fan. So I didn't necessarily see the day 2 hype around him quite as much as some others did. I just didn't. And I know that some of it was injury related as well. He did take a beating.
Tutu Atwell was taking 2 spots before Terrace Marshall. Are you bleeping kidding me?
We should do a study. We should commission a study. We'll get Adam Harstead in because he'll be really good at this. We'll go through we'll track all of basically the typology of teams. And I thought something that the 49ers said was really fascinating. It's like, hey, we don't draft guys that we don't think can't start on day 2, right? We're not going to draft a specialist on day 2. The Rams do it like every year. It's just really interesting in terms of like, I mean, in what range of outcomes do you expect like 120 targets from Tutu Atwell? It's just not going to happen. Right? I mean, it'd just be the rarest outcome. I don't know why they did that at all.
Where would Terrace Marshall be going if he went to the Rams?
Probably still behind Michael Carter.
Touche. Ahead of Rashad. Do you think he would go ahead of her situationally? The way that thing could open up next year, do you think he goes ahead of Elijah Moore and Rashad Bateman and stuff? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll never know.
Yeah.
We'll never know. Tutu Atwell's the guy, and he's fading down. All right. Trey Lance. This is actually a fun fact. Trey Lance, and a trivia question, paging Adam Harstead. Trey Lance is the first person to be drafted by an NFL team that was born this century. It makes me feel so old.
Get out of here, really?
He was born in the 2000s.
Yeah, that's right, because he would have been, because all the 20-year-olds were drafted at
21 point, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's makes right. You, so what? That means I was what? Geez. Okay, we're just going to move on.
There you go. Makes me feel so old. Jordan, welcome. Drew Lock is a winner with no real threats at quarterback being added.
There's someone that's residing in Green Bay or wishes to not be residing in Green Bay, Wisconsin right now that's going to beg to differ. How much would you give? Speaking of like the Mahomes deal, how much would you give? Like with that roster, you basically, it's like a James Harden in the NBA deal. You just give everything you've got to get him, right?
And then figure it out. Yeah. And I thought my snarky thing is Drew Lock may be the loser here because he has to actually be good. It's great. If he has great weapons, that's tremendous, but you have to facilitate. And still, we talked about this earlier with day 3 wide receivers or running backs or whatever. You've got to earn. It's about the hold. It's like Seinfeld. The reservation is all about the hold. Anyone could just take them. But you have to hold the reservation. Drew Lock has to hold the position that is valued and coveted because there's a lot of strong pieces around him. All right. I believe the biggest winner was Mark Andrews. Brown and Bateman stretching the defense vertically will allow Andrews more room to roam.
I'm open to the idea. One thing that I don't know how much it makes him a winner. I just think you want more targets, and I don't really think the design of them matters as much as people think. So if it's going to hurt his targets and we're hoping for an efficiency thing, I'd reject that idea. But I am open to the idea that this is a signal from Baltimore they need to throw the ball more because they're going to recognize the fact that, hey, listen, we got to beat Kansas City. We're going to need to throw. You sort of look around the division. Like you look around the conference. Yeah, Buffalo, like, hey, we're not going to get to where we want to go throwing it 480 times. We're just not going to do that. And so they ran the 5th fewest routes for wide receivers last year. That's got to change. And they have to be more effective in doing that. So I do think it's a higher volume passing game. And maybe that's a situation that helps Andrews as well. Can we go back to the Denver thing for a second?
You are really struggling with rapid fire, Jordan. This is not your thing. I set you up to fail. It's my fault. No, rapid fire is not 5 points in 9 minutes. That's yes, you can go back to the beginning of the show and talk again about Najee Harris. Yes, you can do that.
No. Who's so what's your bet on where Aaron Rodgers is going to play next year?
Non-Green Bay.
Do you think he plays? Do you think they'll actually trade him?
Yes. I think you will get a
Denver,
big massive
you like back up the Brinkstruck to do it, right?
Yes.
But the question is who's competing against them? It's got to be Carolina, right? But I don't know. This stuff interests me. All right, go ahead. You're back in the seat. Go.
Okay. Josh Reynolds. This looked like a prime situation to be drafting for wide receiver 2. They spent some decent capital on Des Fitzpatrick, but seems like Reynolds is going to have the better shot at wide receiver 2 than anyone expected coming into the draft.
I agree with that. Anthony Ferkser is the other name.
You're big on Ferkser, but I think Reynolds is out there on the waiver wires. Big Ferkser fan. Mm-hmm. All right. A big loser, Mike Gesicki. Waddle being added to go along with Hunter Long in the third.
Yeah, I mean it's a developmental tight end, so be careful on that. He's up for a contract, so that's something we're going to need to watch here over the next couple of months, and we'll see. If you want him to get extended there, then you do want him going someplace else. So that'd be something I'm watching for. I think it's more of a hold.
Even in a run-first offense, A.J. Brown is a candidate to lead the league in targets without them strongly addressing the wide receiver position.
Chad, they're going to line you up at wide receiver too, so yeah, I'm in on A.J. Brown getting a big market share.
Where's Adam Humphries when they need him? What do you think about this? One comment was about wide receiver 2 in Kansas City. No Sammy Watkins. He mentioned McCole Hardman, Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, all coming back. Could be a muddied mess for wide receiver 2, but is someone going to win it, from that zone? Do you have a bet? I would imagine Hardman is easily the most expensive there, but do you think it's so clarified that actually top 35, 45 value of production here?
No, I don't think so. And maybe it's just that we kind of see what they've been doing and it keeps kind of rolling. And maybe it's a situation where Edwards-Helaire can pick up a little bit of volume, but I don't see a clear person stepping forward.
Yeah, I think Edwards-Helaire is going to get more volume this year, taking that year 2 step you typically see because, he had such a down rookie year. It was horrible. Jordan Akins with Brevin
McCaffrey all over again.
Exactly. Yeah. Jordan Akins with Brevin Jordan being selected.
Brevin Jordan fell quite a bit.
Yes.
I don't know what the whole situation that Houston's such a dumpster fire that I don't really know what to do with any of their guys at this point. I don't think that Brevin Jordan takes a huge chunk out of Jordan Akins though, for whatever Jordan Akins is worth before the draft.
And last one, Kadarius Toney falls as low as any round 1 wide receiver in recent rookie draft memory.
Depends how recent we want to talk. It's going to be pretty close. I could tell you, I think it was, I think AJ Jenkins went like 18. I'm just looking for Toney here. He's at 8. Yeah, he's going to be amongst the latest because he's at 8. There's 4 running backs ahead of him and a tight end. So he's at like 13 or 14. It looks like Michael Carter's ahead of him too. And Frymouth. So he's at 14 and of non-quarterbacks or so, thereabouts in terms of the actual market. So yeah, it's amongst the latest first-round wide receivers ever. I think AJ Jenkins was later than him, and I think that's it.
All right. Action-packed. We will get back to a lot more trade talk next week, only mixed in a few because we had so many great quotes out there from the Shark Pool and the Football Guys Dynasty Forum. We also talked about some of those landing spots, and sometimes you got to ignore the jersey a little bit, ignore the situation and the landing spot, but you want to pay attention to the draft position and pedigree of these backs. And, Michael Carter, great example of that. We talked on the other end with Travis Etienne being another example at the running back position and some select wide receivers that fall into that mode. I am Chad Parsons. He is Jordan McNamara. And until next time, good luck in your Dynasty leagues.